All right. Hello, everyone. We are here with Selena, and we're so excited to hear her story. Selena, I'm just going to let you kind of start at the beginning. I'll ask you questions all along the way, but why don't you kind of kick us off with like who you are, where are you calling from, what did your life look like before Write Your Way to Freedom, and bring us up until today. And I'll just ask questions along the way.
Okay, sure. So I'm Selena and I'm in California in the Bay Area, in San Jose. And I came across Write Your Way to Freedom. Well, I'll back up a little bit. I was a piano teacher and I owned a music school.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so I did that for 10 years and I really loved it. It was the first thing that I did out of college and it was my dream and my school was doing really well and I loved teaching. And then it kind of it grew really fast, especially in the last few years. And I hired a bunch of staff and I was
Nice.
teaching. Yeah, I had 12 people on staff and I was teaching full time and managing everything. So I became burnt out,
Yeah.
which is my fault. I could have distributed the duties better, but I became burnt out and I one day was like, I can't do this anymore. Like right now, I have to stop. So that was actually April 2022. And 2021. Wait, no, what year are we in? 2022. And so then I decided right then and there that I wanted to sell my studio and I wanted to do it by my wedding day, which was August 13th of that year. So like in 4 months or 5 months. And so I sold my studio. I found someone to buy it. I went through the process. It was the craziest time ever. I sold the studio and then I like took a sigh of relief. And then I was like, I have no idea what I want to do now. And so I knew that I loved to write and I came across and I really always enjoyed the copywriting part of my job, which was, marketing the school. And also I also had an online course for teachers, which did well. And so I was familiar with copywriting, but I hadn't been like trained in it and I didn't know how to make a career out of it. And so I saw your ad on Instagram and I always get this feeling in my body, I guess, that I'm like, this is the thing. And that as soon as I saw your ad, I was like, yep, I told my husband, I was like, I'm a copywriter now. Before I even like while I was watching your free training. So it was great and no hesitation at all buying the course. And within a month I had my first client.
Oh,
And yeah, and it was just based off of your advice, which was asking around. Like I think in some video somewhere you were like, ask your friends that have businesses. And so I did, and one of my friends has a soap company, and so they needed some copy done, some blogs and things like that. So that was my first project, and of course I was really nervous to like start asking for money for this, but it worked out. And then I landed on my niche, which is mostly dietitians and counselors in the non-diet space. And like part of my background and journey is like eating disorder recovery. And that was the one thing that I could talk about all day, any day, never get tired of. And so I was like, why not make that my niche? So I started kind of dabbling in that space, trying to see if I could find someone who needed help in that area. And actually, I landed my total dream client, like someone I never could have imagined that I would work with, who's a big name in the space, because I listened to her podcast. And on her podcast, she mentions, like in passing, something about her website and how she wanted to change something about her website. And I just like I slid into her DMs and I was like, hey, I listen to your podcast. And like, I'm a copywriter and web designer, which I'll get to in a second. And like, you mentioned this, if you need help, like, I'll help you. And then she's like, actually, yes. And so I had this big project with her, which was totally amazing. And then since then, I've just been getting referrals from people who know her, which is
oh
super exciting.
my gosh. Wait, there's so much happening in this story.
Yeah. I was like, should I stop now? I don't know.
No, no, no. It's amazing. First of all, what I really love about your story, and I think is like obviously such a gift, is you clearly like listen to yourself. And I think that that's something I had to learn to like do. But you have, I don't know have you always been like that where you like learned to like listen to yourself, or is that something you've like worked on?
No, I mean, I'm happy that I'm able to do it now. There's definitely been some times where I wish I had done it more because then I would have avoided situations. But also, I wish I had done it sooner in my teaching journey because I wouldn't have probably gotten to that point of burnout.
Mhm.
It was like, I'm fine, this is fine for like years. And then one day it was just not fine immediately. So,
Yeah. So
but yeah,
that
I do have that, like that, I recognize that feeling that I have when I like know something is for me. And I really love that about myself.
like a strong intuition. That is like
Yeah.
truly something I had to like work on and like cultivate. So hearing your story, I'm just like, oh my gosh, there's so
Yeah.
many times where you were like, this is the next move. What was
Yeah.
it like? So remind me real quick of the timeline between shutting down your business and then finding Write Your Way to Freedom. How long was that?
Um,
About
I,
like,
I officially sold my business on August 12th, 2022, and I found Write Your Way to Freedom in October, the following,
oh
so like
wow. Okay,
two
so
months later.
super fast, super
Yeah,
fast.
and I was kind of like meandering, like, what am I going to do? But I wasn't in a totally desperate situation because I had just sold my business, so I had some income for a while. But that's when I saw the ad.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And because I think that so often, like for a lot of people in the community anyway, there's been a lot of stories of experiencing a big shift right before, like going all in on this new thing. Sometimes it happens right before you find it, sometimes the course, sometimes it happens right after. And I'm just wondering, like in that in between time, in that limbo time, like what did that feel like? Was it
Mm. You know, that limbo time was so like, Um, okay, well, I wasn't worried at that time, but there was a time a few months later, which I'll tell you about in a second, that I started to worry. But that time was very like, I just let my brain melt, is how I would describe it, because I was so burnt out. And I was like, I don't want to work hard at anything. I just want to like recover. I like laid for several days, for
so good?
weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I just needed to. But and so when I discovered your course, it was more a feeling of excitement.
Mm.
And I wasn't super worried about like immediately getting tons of clients, which I know is probably different than other people's experience in the course. But actually, a few months after that, so around May the following year, my husband and I decided that we wanted to buy a house. And we we bought the house in like a month. It was like a very fast process. And whether it was warranted or not, really had this like psychological, I was kind of freaking out because I was like, I don't, I could get this copywriting thing up and going, and I know that I could get more clients if I, worked really hard at it. But I was so I had been running my own business for years before that, and I was just like not. Didn't know if I wanted to go through like what I thought would be the stress of trying to like make
Ramp
sure
up.
that I was, yeah. And so actually a friend of mine works in marketing at a fully online remote company, and it's like a college admissions consultancy. And my husband was talking to her one day and mentioned that I'm doing this copywriting thing, and then she's like, "Oh, we're hiring right now. We need a copywriter full time remote with benefits and everything." And I was like, okay, so I applied and I got the job. It totally landed in my lap. And for me, again, I know that's not the same as experience as a lot of people in here. They don't necessarily want a full-time job. But for me, at that moment when I really wanted consistent income and stability in exactly what I wanted to be doing, which is
Mm.
copywriting, it was really useful for me and helpful, and I loved it.
Mm.
So yeah, and it's the most flexible thing ever. It doesn't feel like a full-time job. It feels like I have one retainer client
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
like I consider them my retainer client. Like I know that I work for them, but it's a pleasure and a breeze to work with them. So
Yeah. No, that's amazing. I feel like we've had quite a few people who have gone on to get like jobs with the copy with, in copywriting, which I think is great. I mean, sometimes that's a great place for wherever you are in life to, I mean, it's a confidence booster, right? You're like,
yeah,
never been a copywriter before, and here now somebody's employing me to be a copywriter.
yeah.
That's a big
And
confidence boost.
totally. And for me, for my personality, I like to be in a position. I feel like I need to be in a position where I'm almost forced to like produce things all the time, no matter whether I feel like it or not. And I guess in a balanced way. Like I wouldn't want to do it if I hated it, but this job is like, we need this, do this, and I'm always being pushed like to do things that I maybe wouldn't necessarily do if I was just like at home with my cup of tea, like, well, I don't have to work today, you
Yeah,
know? So
yeah.
for me, it's like a good way to just get a lot of experience. And I still have freelance clients. I try to limit it to at least one at a time. So yeah.
No, that's amazing. I think that's great. I had to figure out how to like make it self-imposed, like telling clients that
Mhm.
the deadline was this date, even though it was like there was no need for a deadline, but I was like, I
Yeah.
have to give myself a deadline or this won't get done.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So is it all the work you're doing in intuitive eating, or is that just your freelance work?
So the full-time job is in like college admissions. So
Oh,
I
right, right,
know
right.
I know more than I ever wanted to know about that now. But it's interesting. It's interesting enough, you know? And all my freelance clients, yes, now are in intuitive eating or like fitness, like fit gyms. A lot of
Yeah,
gyms find me. So
that's
um
amazing. Because intuitive
yeah.
eating is a niche that I mean, it doesn't make the top like most profitable niche lists,
Yeah.
list articles that come out every year. But I know it's something that a lot of people are really, really passionate about, and to hear that you've like made that your niche is really cool. I mean,
Yeah.
because it's like you're spreading good things in the world and helping people
Yeah.
with the journey that you've been on. And like you said, it's something you can talk about all day long. So that
Yeah,
must
those are
feel,
the most, it does. Those are the most fulfilling projects. Like when I'm writing just like from the heart and it's almost like doesn't even feel like work. I mean, it is, but it flows out of me when I talk about that kind of stuff. And yeah, it feels like I'm making a difference, which is super fulfilling.
and I love how the way you talked about getting that dream client, because that's been my experience too. Like one of my dream clients, I just like, well, I had cold emailed him and then he happened to post, oh, I'm looking for a copywriter. And I was like, buddy, I was already in your inbox. Let's pop that up to the top.
Yeah.
So I just love that because it's when you're writing in a niche that you're really passionate about, and like were you listening to that podcast to like get a client, or were you just listening to it?
No, I just listened to it because I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she mentioned that. I was like, hey. And I
And
almost didn't email her. My husband was like, do it. So
oh, I'm so
she
glad you emailed her.
yeah.
And so now you have that relationship like in the industry, right?
Hmm.
And that's
Yeah.
been like really fruitful for you and created referrals. And that's like the best. That's like when I don't know, once you can get out of the client acquisition phase where you have to like do a bunch of outreach and stuff, and you get to that phase where you're getting referrals and you kind of like become the intuitive eating copywriter, like it just kind of like flows and feels really good. It sounds like
Yeah.
it's happening for you.
Yeah, it's starting to happen. And I think this whole last year has been about figuring out like what I want to focus on even within that niche. Because there's blogs, there's like longer form stuff, there's emails, and I also actually in writing website copy realized that I also like designing websites. And so I started doing that as well. So now I offer like a full copy and full web design, which are the most lucrative projects for me um,
Yes.
personally. So that's exciting. And I'm still kind of refining what I want all the packages to look like. But
That's amazing. And what a journey. It's been like basically a year, like a year and
yeah,
change.
yeah, it's like whiplash almost. Like,
Like when you look
yeah,
back a year ago, can you believe it's just been 1 year? Like
no, I really can't.
that's so incredible. Will you share with us maybe a time of, well, you did share a little bit of doubt with the buying the house and stuff, but is there I don't know, the typical things that people go through and they like love to hear other people speak to is just like imposter syndrome, the
Hmm.
self-doubt, things like that. Do you have any words of wisdom for us there,
Yeah,
or an experience
absolutely.
that you went through?
Actually, okay, so I okay, so when I found this dream client of mine,
Yeah.
okay, well, I had obviously done research as far as other like intuitive eating copywriters, and top couple ones on Google before I made my website because now mine's number one, or actually two. But anyways, the top couple ones on because of your course, but the top few ones on Google, I was like, oh, they're so experienced. One of them was like a nurse, and the other one was like formerly a dietitian, like is a dietitian, and so I was like, oh man, like why would anyone choose me over those people? I'm just a random person that, has never worked in this field. And actually when I landed with this dream client, I actually reached out to her first about web design because that's what she had mentioned on her podcast. But I told her I'm a copywriter and web designer. And she's like, oh, actually, I just had my website copy redone by this person who was like one of the top on Google, one of those people that I was like, I could never be like them. And she's like, but I don't like it. And if you want to rewrite my homepage, that would be amazing. And I was like,
Oh,
so that was a cool moment to see like, okay, not that maybe those people aren't good, but but I do have something that I could offer.
Mhm.
And she asked me to do it. And there was the whole imposter syndrome of even doing that for her. I was like, should I be doing this?
Added pressure of
Yeah,
like
added pressure. She's like,
for
I
me.
didn't like this copy. Can you do better? And I was like, oh my God.
I don't know, can I?
So,
But
so,
that's
but she loved it. So
yeah, that's actually such a beautiful story because that really touches on something that I'm constantly trying to like get through to people is that with clients and like copywriters like pairing us, it's like of pairing like friendships to
Mhm.
some extent. And words are so subjective and emotional that sometimes it doesn't matter what your like credentials are, that you're a nurse or whatever. It's how you say things, how you feel things. And that's like what makes a dream client is like when you find that alignment. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
totally.
sometimes the credibility is in the fact that like for you specifically, like you lived through this experience and now it's like it's a piece of you. And so that
Yeah.
probably comes out in your writing. And that's like amazing. And that's I don't know, that's the thing about clients is like I've had clients where I was like, oh, I hate working with this person.
Yeah.
I always tell this one story about a client how I just like couldn't stand him. He like made me nuts. And so I passed him off and I was like, looking for other copywriters to take him on. And I felt bad because I was like, who would ever want to work with this guy? And then so I made sure to tell them, like, just careful. He's kind of like
Yeah.
this. And like one woman that I paired him up with, they've been still working together for like 3+ years. And she's like, I love him. He reminds me of my dad. He's like a crotchety old man. It's hilarious. I'm like, well, I'm
I'm
glad you
glad you enjoy it.
and I think
Yeah,
that's like the lesson here, right? It's just like it's like finding friends. Like you're just not always going to connect and that's okay. Sometimes you don't connect. And then sometimes you're going to like hit it out of the park. And that's how you know that's like your BFF client. So,
totally.
ah, I love that story. That was such a helpful one. So what's next? What's in your future? What are you hoping to do with all this? Or are we just
Um,
seeing where it goes? No
yeah,
pressure.
well, no, I have been seeing where it goes, and I think I see where it goes now, which so I'm about to start a web design, full copy project, which will be again like great money, but I'm realizing that these massive projects are maybe not what I want to be doing long term. I mean, I don't know. I like it, super satisfying, but with my full-time job and everything, it's kind of like just this whole I go like crazy for a couple weeks trying to like from inception to, polishing. So actually what I think I'd really like to do is land a couple of retainer email clients
Mm.
who want, consistent emails. I love writing emails. It's my ultimate favorite thing. And I think the thing that I'm best at. And I haven't even looked. I have not looked for like email retainer clients yet, but after this project, I might reach out to some past clients or slide into some more DMs and see. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I was going to recommend. I was like past clients because one of the things about like that are so great about email clients, just like blog clients, is that it's all needed on an ongoing basis.
Yeah.
So that's amazing.
Yeah. And
Uh,
I've always thought, actually, I remember in your blog module, you talked about writing blogs, and I think you have it down to 2 hours. And I'm still like, how does Sarah write a blog in 2 hours? Because I can, like, if I'm so fast, maybe three, usually four. I don't
And
know.
now
It
it's
still takes
probably
me long.
faster because you can use, I don't know if you're using Chat GPT for ideation purposes, but it's like really helpful for speeding things.
Yeah.
So definitely use that. That's a big help. But yeah, it just takes practice. I mean,
Yeah.
keep in mind, it's funny because you've been at this a year and have experienced so much growth, but it's also like a good, healthy reminder to be like, I've also only been at this a year. Like,
Hmm.
you'll get faster, you'll get more efficient, you'll get better. Like it just, the only way forward is up. And actually there was something else you said that I wanted to like touch on because I was like, oh, I feel like that's just because it's like early on and it will like come, but um, oh, just how big the big projects feel. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? I think that sometimes can happen like in the earlier years where it feels big because it's still relatively new. You know what I mean? And it's just like with time and mindset work, I'm a big believer in that, and good,
Mhm.
healthy boundaries
Yeah.
and figuring out how to schedule your day so that it like works with your energy, like those few things and getting really good at that, makes all the difference between like a big project feeling like really overwhelming and a big project being like, it's just another day. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Throw it out
Yeah,
there.
that's great to hear. That could be
Yeah.
the case for me.
Yeah. Cause I don't know, like a big shift for me was really like managing my day well and being like, this is what works for me. Not looking at emails first thing in the morning. Like that, that for me.
Yeah.
I had to do it to not stress myself out. So,
Yeah, I would say I'm still getting the hang of the routine. And like I've been self-employed for years, but it's always been a challenge. And so figuring out, like, I realized the best time for me to do my like hardest writing is in the morning, like first thing. So just wake up, open my computer, start writing. And then usually that if I do that, the rest of my day goes smoothly and the
Mhm.
project goes smoothly. But sometimes I don't do that.
Okay though. That's
Yeah.
the other thing is reminding yourself that like your best every day is going to be different. Like that's a big one for me too. So I'm like,
Yeah.
some days I'm on fire and some days I'm slow burn and some days I'm smoke. Nothing. I'm ashes. Uh, yeah, that's this, Selena. I'm so glad we got to get together and hear your story. I'm just like absolutely amazed. And thank you for sharing all of what you've gone through. And do you have any words of wisdom? Or I really like to ask if you could reach out to yourself a year ago at the beginning of this journey and share with yourself some insight or words of wisdom. Like, what would you tell yourself back then?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, I would say you can make a career out of this, even though AI is starting to be a thing. Maybe not a year ago, but like 6 months ago is when I started worrying about that.
Yep.
Um,
Any
also,
shifts there? Actually, we'll come back to that. Keep going. Also, what?
okay. Also, it's okay to charge money for your time and your services. That's like so basic, but even down to like I've had clients ask me if we could just hop on a quick call to like do some marketing brainstorm. And I'm like, I used to be like, sure. And then an hour goes by on a call with them and I didn't get paid and I helped them a ton. So like that's a big one for me. Not feeling like I'm the
Serious.
worst person ever for asking for money for my services.
That's what I mean. Those business owner boundaries are huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd share? Those are good ones.
Mm.
Those aren't little. Those are big.
Yeah, those are probably the
Those are
main
hard.
ones. Oh, and I think the other one would be just for like the actual writing process, just write something down. Just start writing for me because I would just torture myself. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna write, like procrastinate, avoid. But if I just like literally just write whatever, like blah, and just start, like I can refine it from there and it's so much easier. So
Yeah.
that's yeah,
Those are
just
huge.
write something.
Yeah. For me, a helpful one is actually using voice memos. Because I'm like, if I
Yeah.
just talk, for some reason, there's like, for me anyway, there's like less pressure when I'm talking than when I'm
Yeah, that's
writing.
a great idea.
When I write, I'm like self-editing and I'm like, oh, no, no. And I slow myself way down. But when I talk, I'm just like, blah, blah, blah. So it's
Yeah, and sometimes, most of the time, I would imagine your copy is best when it's actually in the tone that you say it. So that's
right,
amazing.
right. That dictation software, ooh, that's a game changer. Also, really helpful when you're tired. When you're like,
Hmm.
my brain is so tired and I can't look at a computer screen right now. You can just like start speaking and get a whole bunch of stuff out usually.
That's
So
a good idea. I'm gonna do that.
yeah, let's circle back to the AI thing because everybody's a little bit worried about it. Even I was worried about it, but I've just been seeing a massive rebound. So of
Hmm.
people being like, oh, nope, this is not where we need it to
Hmm.
be. So
Yeah.
what's been your experience with that so far?
Um, maybe it's gonna get better and maybe one day it could do what I do, but what we do. But right now, at least, even I've even invested in like higher level, like prompt engineering, trying to get the best possible yield from AI, from ChatGPT. And what it puts out is still not what I would have someone pay me for. Like I don't think there's a replacement for the super valuable anecdotes that our clients have, that we have, that like, I mean, it sounds cheesy, but that human touch.
The connection.
And
Yeah, it's
and
a
I think
storytelling.
even if AI was, sorry to interrupt you,
Oh, good.
um, but even if AI was the best copywriter, there would still be tons of people that just didn't want to bother with it. And so
Oh, yeah.
that's the big comforting thing for me. Like some people know how to design a website, but they just don't want to make their own website. And people are busy. Business owners are busy. So
They're busy running their business. And even if they did like want to do a little DIY, like all the expertise and strategy and psychology
yeah,
you need to know as a copywriter to like pull out what you need to pull out of Chat GPT to like make it work for you and your client. I mean, it's not even close to being there, I think, but also there's it's like so it's like this what is the subject the subject matter experts. Like that's,
hmm
I mean, it's just, I don't know. So I've been like super reassured in the last
yeah,
few months. I had a moment where I was like, uh-oh. And now I'm like, this is like yeah, because people are always going to need somebody to tell you how to implement, tell you how to execute, what to do, what's the strategy. And it's just like way too much. So anyway,
right.
yeah. Well, cool. Well, thank you so, so much for sharing your story. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And actually I have one more question for you. Do you have anything to speak to as far as like tapping into that intuition? Because you do
Mm.
it so well.
Oh man, that's a good question. Um, okay, well, like now it's kind of a feeling that I have and I recognize.
Right.
But I would say for me, like something, how I know something is for me is if I imagine myself, take the thing in my mind and then I imagine someone telling me, you absolutely can't do this. Like you can't have it. No. Or
Mm-hmm.
like the opportunity's gone. And if I feel like really devastated about it, then that was like a thing that's for me. And I guess if you want to be more analytical about it. um, and so, or if if I'm like, oh, I don't really care that much, I know that that wasn't for me. So that's kind of like a mental exercise, I guess.
Great mental exercise. Thank you. Thank you guys. Learning how to tap into that intuition is a game changer for me. So I loved hearing you speak to that. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, Selena, for sharing your story. You're amazing. I can't wait to see where you are in a year from now since your years are on fire.
Thank
So
you.
yeah. And we'll see you all in the community. See you in the community.
Yeah,
Bye,
thank you,
guys.
everyone. And thank you, Sarah, for your course. You're amazing.
Oh, thank you. It's like these are the stories that make me do what I do. Like I love, love, love what you've done with this. So it's you, you know?
Yay.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Yeah. All right. Bye, guys. See you in the community. Thank you,
Bye,
Selena.
everyone.
Bye.